Szanowni Państwo, witam serdecznie.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or perhaps good evening. Welcome to the next panel that regards social climatic issues. We will be talking about social dimensions of climate neutrality. I would like to welcome Gromada, economist and sociologist, researcher, co-founder of the Kalecki Foundation. Thank you for the invitation. Lidia Kołucka, Vice President of the Energy Forum. Paweł Wojciechowski, key economist of Pracodawcy RP, Employees of Poland Association. It's good that during such events as the Freedom Games, we devote more and more time to climate, its changes, how we need to cope with the ongoing climate crisis and that threatening climatic disaster. So such threats regard each and every one of us. I believe that during each panel, each debate that analyzes social, economic, or any other issues, these topics appear. We do not need to persuade anyone that the matter of reaching climatic neutrality is essential to avoid the worst effect of the climate change that is affecting everyone. And it also puts a pressure on our economies and every aspect of life. I wouldn't like to waste time on explaining the effects of the climate change. I assume that everybody who has attended this year's Freedom Games or in general you are aware of that. But Lidia, in the beginning, could you explain the topic of climate neutrality and why we have no other choice? Thank you very much. Thank you for your time this evening. Before I answer your question, I need to say that it is an extremely important thing that this topic is one of the top topics in each public debate. It's enough to say that 10 years ago, when the first strategy was established, Poland 2030, it was a very important document that collected all the strategies for our country, included no single word on the climate or very restricted way. After 10 years, due to the growing awareness and the progressing effects of the climate change, the topic has become fundamental. The definition of the climate neutrality is very simple. The goal the EU has set for the top goal to reach until 2050 is simply balance between the emission of greenhouse gases and its neutralization. We need to reach a situation when the balance goes to zero. Perhaps you have come across an approach that is quite popular among politicians, that talking about neutrality is turning to reduction of emissions, technology of absorbing CO2 or generating energy. And I would like us to have a look now at the fact that the climatic neutrality or reaching this neutrality will change the life of each of us. And it is not a distant concept to be analyzed by the government or the politicians, but it is introducing real changes into life. Almost complete, if not serious, change of the paradigm of the contemporary world, how we live, what we consume, how we move, how we produce, and how what our life looks like. Are we capable? The question goes to Paweł. Are we capable to foresee, or can we imagine how transport should look for us. We need to move. The model we know is the one that needs to leave. Well, thank you very much. I'm really honored to be in such a great group. And I need to say that I agree with Lidia that the awareness has changed. But the change that is about to happen is not occurring due to the delay in understanding what you can reach. The Fit for 55 is just a concept. And in fact, reaching the climate neutrality is not valued finally. We heard before that she feels old in a state that cannot calculate anything in this respect. It's the key problem. We don't speak about it, we don't calculate, but general problem is that when we talk about changing the paradigm by Kuhn of a scientific method, it's not enough to change the mind. You need a method, a foundation for practical solutions. For instance, roadmaps to reach something. When we speak about technology, on the other hand, we discuss costs. The costs that involve in net calculation, that we do not take any actions, business as usual. This is one effect that is negative, contrary to the outlays we need to incur to change something. These are investments, these are costs. Some costs that can be external, that can be in form of fees or taxes, so that we calculate the total cost. The issue is that even in the transport policy, it is extremely difficult. The European policy has climatic goals regarding 20% in the budget. Poland that contributes 20% of emission of CO2 is 60%. The key policy is that it is a policy of moving from the roads to the railways. When we built KPO, everybody asks why railway? But railway is low emission transport. If we look at the entire cost of building railway, if we even consider photovoltaic panels, we will have a problem with calculating that. And this is a true problem when we speak of elements, adaptation elements that are simpler. If we take adaptation, building a retention reservoir in Racibórz, it was calculated at 2.5 billion euros benefit out of 500 million euros of spending. We countrified flooding. So this is what you can calculate. But if you look at the Parmenese ham, theoretically it's okay. But the production of that ham involves soy, the animal feed. Brazil produces most of soybeans, so deforestation 2.55 billion euros per year in terms of CO2 emission climatic issues. We are talking about a situation by a certain globalization of the value of chain. That's the key issue. The problem of accessing technology. On the other hand, regulatory policies that are not embedded for the companies that have to contribute to the transformation. I'd like to go a bit more into detail about the analysis you have just started. It's important to build a model that would answer to all challenges and questions regarding climate. I believe it's impossible. Just the mere calculation of health costs, I can speak from my organization's perspective, is practically impossible because it is so multidimensional, multi-layer problem. Regarding the calculation of benefits, I need to attract your attention to the fact that frequently the health costs are not included. We, in economic calculations, we only address what comes out under the calculation line, what we invest, what can be regained. So we should include hospitalization issues, loss of productivity, but individual pain, cost of 1 year of life or years lost. There are organizations like OECD that are trying to include such costs, but it's very difficult and quite arbitrary. So, knowing how difficult it is, we still have a set of tools, of initiatives, and I'm back to the European Green Deal, that direct us to particular solutions. Considering the need to introduce the solutions, we can assume this is our roadmap that will not reply to all the questions, because individual states, governments have a lot of work to do in implementation. But I had this feeling that we are quite lost in it. We cannot fully answer the questions about practical actions. I think it's a bit wrong. I mean, it's hell difficult, and you need two good workshops. In the EU, the workshop has been worked out, so did OECD. But to develop this workshop of the global value chain took 10 years to create. Only then it was presented through different matrices, how the value is created in export. So all such projects that are supposed to measure are to help with evidence. The problem is evidence, apart from the calculating the effects of climate changes and complex risks that are calculated at 50%, we cannot say which policies bring what effects. We have plenty of policies, but we don't have calculation whether there should be LNG, hydrogen. Even if the EU is discussing that, we are a bit confused because we still need to work to have the proper measurements of those policies to decide this or that.
Thank you very much indeed. I think you were referring to the question of energy generation mix, energy mix and selection. The previous panel was very interesting. Ms. Anna Gromada. Let's divert from this energy generation, which is quite abstract for regular citizens in the context of blue, green, nuclear power plants. This might be something difficult to comprehend for many people, but nuclear path serves the purpose to reduce emissions, but us, the general public, we are responsible for implementation of this. So, making choices has got impact on us going the neutral way. So can you say how we can interpret the social dimension that is attached to each and every one of us? So let me divide it to a number of parts: perception and public opinion. Second, a case study as it has been happening until now and why we failed. And the third, sociological analysis, why it failed. If we had a highly motivated government to introduce ecological transformation, it would be difficult because of the general public. Lead Value Survey, they ask binary questions in this research: ecology or economic growth. Highly developed countries. Well, Poland is, apart from Lithuania and Romania, the only country where most people opt for economic growth, 4 to 43%. This is the first question. What to do to have public support for this? Comparative perspective is Sweden 10 to 8. This preference is clear. What to do to make it the most important, compatible? When we transform, when we close down mines, we think it will be easy to transform the places, to create places. But it doesn't mean that people who lose their jobs in Sector 1 are easy transformable to Sector 2. From a global perspective, we can describe it by the fact that driver of any vehicle is the most popular job. Automation will result in people losing jobs, but they will not requalify, retrain to be UAV pilots. It's a different set of competences. If we boil it down to the national level, well, we have closed coal mines. 1 in 4 people found employment in other sector. A year after losing employment, 11% of people were unemployed, 2/3 inactive because of the mechanism, early retirement, and 1 in 4 found employment in some other sector. What years are we speaking about? This is dozen or so years. I've got a database with me, so I can show it after the panel. Lidia, 10-15 years. I'm asking in the context of transformation, just transformation of the regions. It's a hot topic. It's being discussed. It's being negotiated when it comes to the funds. At a local level, it should be kind of managed as far as the workplaces are concerned. 75% of those who lose the job, they should requalify. Can we refer it to present situation? Well, we can think about what are the mechanisms for requalification which make it difficult. For me, this is missing the social themes, the identity or unity creating function, and low geographical mobility of Poles. A Pole moves 5 times a year. Americans, 12 times a year. They relocate because of professional reasons. One of the previous mistakes was the assumption is that if we offer employment 100 kilometers away from their abode, solves the problem, because preferences were spread out differently when you speak about mobility and work. Thank you very much. Lidia Kołucka. Will we pay more for electricity? An average household, will we pay more? If we follow this climate neutrality path, will it be a dramatic increase in prices? No way out. All research show it clearly that energy prices will be increasing, but I want to say one thing. Not because we are not ready for that. For the recent years, we haven't done our homework. We haven't prepared ourselves to what we are in for. This is the greatest risk. This is 5 minutes to the noon, and this is the very last ad hoc moment to start up activities. What is most important today is not my fear, but the fact that this is a hot topic in the media. What it means? The narrative as it is presented. I was getting ready for the panel. I wanted to reverse this line of thinking. A path in Poland and abroad. Can it be treated as a chance for all of us? For a better life, closer to nature, smog-free, civilizational leap. And this is what I want to speak about in these categories. We should be ready for that in a strategic level, taking into account all the analyses that are prepared, as they are prepared, including the institutions we are in, showing different scenarios that lead to neutrality or 2025 being a very important year, so that we analyze it as great chances for us, the general public. Thank you very much for this narrative, because I was kind of provocative in asking question, this price increase question, because in conversation, not high level, but in general conversations, when I talk to my friends, we have this question about price increase. When we talk about climate policies, climate neutrality, this is one of the first questions. This is what people are afraid of. They don't understand that this process is unavoidable. They don't understand the costs, health costs, well-being costs. What happens if we do not strive? 100 zlotys in your pocket is more real than 1,000 zlotys that you lose as the result of extreme events. Let me focus on simple results and effects, what it means for average Mr. Smith. What kind of positive narrative that we can bear these costs. You were speaking about healthier life, more sustainable. Paweł, if you can make your contribution. There was positive energy from Lidia, but we cannot show them. Positive effects. If we show the negative ones of climate change, sometimes people feel that this is scaring them, making them afraid, but we cannot transplant it to everyday life. It's fantastic that somebody was able to measure the smog and smog impact. We are able to discover what smog is. This is an astounding situation. I do the running and I think, what is the smog level? Awareness-wise, there was a strange word that I was learning in Germany. Unverkenntnisse. So this is the awareness of natural environment. What is it all about? People think waste. My son's daughter wears my t-shirts. Why? Because she wants to be ecological. So she's wearing my garments, my son's daughter. It's fantastic. That changes in your perception. It's not a breakthrough, but it's much faster compared to the policies that we are speaking about. To give you a picture, agriculture on the one hand side, we keep talking about agriculture, 10% contribution, on the other hand, floods and droughts. We cannot show what sustainable. This is a great challenge. Yeah, we can use facts and figures like 4,000 or 4 million workplaces in green technology. It's difficult to coin up a positive narrative. It's a great challenge. Negationism is yet another challenge. President's advisors, they make it relative, or this is devoid of scientific facts and figures. This is something we need to fight against because we cannot see common good. These are the elements that we need to speak about to make it democratic, so that people can experience it, like smog, obese, that will cease to be. I was first. I want to speak. I want to add. I was doing this on purpose, that informed climate change, but I am aware of all the difficulties ahead of us. Access to water for people, consequences in Poland, what you were saying, this energy poverty that's in place. Without strategies and plans, we'll have this problem. It will be painful. It will make front page news. But I do believe that the right attitude, strategy, will make us benefit all. But we need to get ready for that. There was a question about narrative, so how to present it. One of the narratives is health and well-being. From the point of view of social groups, 8 years difference of life expectancy between men and women, quite a lot for the country at this level of development. In countries like ours, it's 4 or 5 years. So where does the difference come from? Because life expectancy is great when it comes to primary school graduates. 5 years, 12 years. So if you work in a mine, you find this work as the one that creates unity and identity, but you pay a dear price. There are two groups of reasons. One's associated with the workplace, others with a style of life. But this is the group that is associated with those who are for Brexit and Trump. They can gain a lot health-wise. And the other group that I deal with professionally, UNICEF, and of all my affiliations, it is the pleasantest. In this world, there are few things that we agree about. Children's well-being is one of the things that we agree about. There are things that are bad for all and the worst for children. One of the things is air pollution. We have the worst air in European Union, and after Turkey and Chile, the fourth worst in the world, poorer than our countries. Children have smaller lungs compared to the body size, so there is a greater air turnover. The immune system is less developed, so they cope not so well. And in Warsaw and similar places, where most of the smog is generated by car fumes, children inhale the most. So when you look at this from child's right for health and for future of the planet, this is one of the strongest narratives that we can suggest. Yes, I agree with you. It's convincing for the people who may not understand it this way. climate change, children up to 5, there is the greatest death toll in developing countries. So children are the ones to suffer the most. Lancet and similar have confirmed that. Many papers of climate scientists have confirmed it, and the forecast is even worse. Children are the ones to suffer, not to mention that they'll be experiencing the crisis more and more. Let me refer to what Paweł said. Smog. We can try to find analogies between awareness raising. 8 years ago, nobody was speaking about smog. Nobody would spend 120 zlotys for anti-smog mask, 800 zlotys for air purifier. They wouldn't plan holidays to avoid smog. Now we have a different situation. So there is a consensus. You need to combat that. We are not here as far as the climate is concerned. And the second analogy that I want to call up, when speaking about smog, a lot, the then Minister of Health said in his official presentation that smog is a theoretical problem. He took a step back. Now, knowing the climate crisis speeding up, it's a danger for all of us. Extreme ways, extreme weather, phenomena, droughts, conflicts, armed conflicts, because there's lack of access to water. Decision makers deny anthropogenic origin of climate change or emission reductions needs. How to create the narrative that is positive, that considers the threats? Is there any way to fight against negative message and falsification of reality by people who play key functions? We've got climate strike, young people going out to strike. I'm wondering whether we are not in the standstill. Is it a result of bad political will? How can you relate to this as experts who know the data, who know the stats? Should it be opposed, instantaneously responded to by the groups associated with science, economy, sociology, or any other way? How should we treat this as society, this kind of message, knowing that they're harmful for us?
Let me say it. It's difficult, but all the time we should remind about the megatrends, two global megatrends: demography, which is against us as the country of the West, the EU, and climate, which is to the detriment of the developing countries. Implementing both means that potentially until 2050 is between 1 and 2 billion climate migrations. I'm talking about a consequence of the way of thinking, because when we speak to a young person, he was here during the first panel the day before yesterday, she said she was worried that we will need to move the capital of Philippines, Manila, because it's going to be flooded. And I said, it's great. There is such global thinking among young people, and young people's activism is contagious. There are people who never thought like that being at the age of 20. I don't think the Polish politicians, with their negationism, relativizations against scientific evidence, not thinking about politicians, avoiding the problem, not using the Just Transformation Fund to help the miners, not just to give them fishing rod, but also the fish for some short time, it's traumatic. So I believe that the narrative should go around the megatrends, and people do understand that. We should be showing examples that there is climatic poverty, that there's energy poverty, there are inequalities everywhere. but that only enhances the inequalities by omission of any policy, like energy policy, that will result in higher power prices. These are the people we are supposed to protect by the Polish order, will be mostly affected by energy prices growth. So it's sort of a vicious circle, I believe, that doesn't bring us to any solution. But keep talking, don't talk about it, but divide rather than equalize the opportunities. From the point of view of communication, it's always a big problem and issue to build narrative based on fear and the one based on benefits. It's a Greek tragedy. I believe that responsible leaders are aware, I may sound naive, they are aware of the importance of the challenges. Nobody based on data would negate. Everybody knows what consequences we await when we ignore it. When saying the data, they need to take actions, often difficult and contrary to what is expected ad hoc in short time by their voters, but they have to. Today is the time for responsible and difficult decisions that may contribute, let me repeat it, to a huge fundamental civilizational change that will require courage and community acting. So we need each other, not only within the EU, though we are lucky to have this Green Ward and Transformation Fund and all the supporting measures, but also on the global level. Today, it is a job for absolutely all of us, both of the macroeconomic level, microeconomic level, and the social level. Each of us, each individual, will be the one on whom the success of transformation will depend, even if we know that individual actions would generate 4% of reduction of harmful gases in environmental protection. I believe in positive narrative. I support Anya's words very much because the sake of children is something beyond any doubt, whatever political options we are. The future of our children is absolutely essential. We will do the transformation for the children. The 4% you've just mentioned, if we consider the change of the transport means, if we care of energy efficiency of buildings, if we install renewable energy sources, if we reasonably choose our eating, reduce excessive consumptionism, recycle the products we use those products longer, avoid sort of the wishes. If we try to think holistic about the challenges regarding that, would it altogether give 4%? There are many elements you've mentioned, because the issue of heating up buildings does not depend only on us, that we will benefit when we warm our houses, if we use heat pumps when we build new houses. Our simple actions that affect us, choosing the means of transport, the number of flights per year by us when we go on holiday, that would make about 4%. Insulating buildings is important, and it is related still to the generation of heat sources, but it is another topic. Only, or as much as you said, there is also this difficult to measure being, not eating meat. So there are still more and more benefits that are not included in what you said. Well, we have about 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody wishing to ask a question? If there is anyone, please. Joanna Kempa. Well, for some time I've been interested how to reduce my impact onto the environment, and I noted several things which a citizen cannot do anything with. We sort our waste. In Poland, sorting waste dumps, sorting facilities where PET bottles burn, and nobody organized a place to process plastic. I know it is done in the West. My question is, how, where, and to whom we should turn to force creation of such things if we take into consideration the fact that the local authorities are deprived all the time of the money. They have less money for eco projects. Anybody willing to answer the question, Paweł? That's a simple answer. We need to get back to the policy, to think that activism, democratization of certain processes of thinking will lead to nowhere. We need to get back to politics, bottom-up initiative. It's not about petitions only. It's demonstration, and such effects are of great importance. I know when you feed the sovereign speaks. We need to do that in certain solidarity with the NGOs, milieux, with everybody individually and together. Not necessarily coordinated actions, even if those are separate, they drop by drop will crack the stone. That's mainly the youth, more than those involved in the politics. Unfortunately, not all the leaders have been convinced, and just the leaders' statements that are contrary to the scientific truth, the scientific evidence should be punished more severely, whether that applies to bottles or other climatic issues. And we have another question. Could I ask you to pass the mic? Thank you. My question goes to Ania Gromada, Dr. Anna Gromada. I'm thinking about this children narrative. I am myself from an organization that considered various scenarios. There are many ethical issues of using children in campaigns. Another thing, I'm worried very much the perception of threat, danger. I wonder how the perception for the future, I don't see it the way I want to see. How can we break through from this mechanism of recognizing danger that is the closest? In the second issue, I can agree there is the asymmetry between the danger and fear, because the fear is more essential. So we could see that that's easy to win election by threatening people with migrants rather than presenting good solutions. I would prefer to build campaigns based on the narrative of opportunities rather than dangers, but I believe the other one would be more effective. Using the image of children, we can talk about children's rights without using the image of particular pictures of children, although I know some committees do use pictures of children. I mean, you want to ask if a child wants to give their face to a campaign. Well, we fight it by presenting children in the form of artwork, not using the real picture. It's like a representation of the child. The imagery of the climate change, I noticed that several years ago when we spoke of the climate change, we saw one picture, then we saw a particular bird on a piece of ice floating. Nobody would be crying after Manila, but the next step should be even deeper personalization of that. What it means to you, and one of the good methods to do so is what it means for the health of your child. I believe that Anna's voice could be the summary. We have run out of time for our debate. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, my speakers. Anna Gromada, thank you. Lidia Kołucka, Paweł, Wojciechowski. I would like this positive narrative accompany us when we think about solutions, and that we treat climate neutrality as an opportunity for all of us, and with all our actions go in that direction. Thank you very much.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Ausreise.
Now boarding flight 1215.
You may now kiss the bride.
Work is different now. We're commuting less, virtually meeting more. Separating work life and life can feel challenging. It's easy to forget that to thrive at work, we need to take care of ourselves. Microsoft Viva Insights offers new experiences to balance productivity and well-being. Personal insights help you stay at your best and most productive. Add structure to your remote workday by opting for a virtual commute, carving out time to have a productive start in the morning and mindfully disconnect in the evening. Protect time before your calendar fills up for focused work, coaching, and learning. Take regular mental breaks with Headspace, tapping into dedicated moments of mindfulness. Use emotional check-ins to tune into your day-to-day mindset and well-being. Strengthen team bonds with Stay Connected experiences that prompt you to praise collaborators, schedule one-on-ones, and follow up on pending commitments and outstanding tasks. Insights for managers and leaders offer windows into how work happens and the impact on employee well-being. Identify where teams may be isolated and take action to break down silos. Quickly discover opportunities to prevent burnout, promote coaching and development, and boost engagement. You and your team's well-being is important, especially in times of change. Taking care of one another allows you to thrive and your organization to build resilience. Experience how new well-being insights in Viva can help.
Liberté Talks to co ważne. Seria Liberté Talks realizowana jest dzięki wsparciu Google oraz Państwa darowizną. Na podcast z Klimatem zaprasza Jakub Wiech.